Harrison, why won't this man marry me? That is the question that a lot of women have that are in relationships right now. You've been with this one person for a long time. He says he loves you. He's doing everything that you think he should be doing to show you that he loves you. But he's not making that step to make you his wife. What I found, the number one reason why men don't marry women in long-term relationships is because they got it all already. Why would a sensible man, right, want to spend money on the cow when he can get all the milk he wants for free? You're giving him the sex on time, right? He's the hubby, and so you're cooking for him on time. You're washing his clothes. You're waiting for him to get home. You're doing all of these things, and you're not really understanding the concept of making that next step because he has it all right now. And when you're working backwards in this type of situation, right, there's never going to be a right time. There's always going to be more money we can save. Not right now because, I'm trying to get this new job or this new promotion. If you have a baby, you're probably saying to yourself, we should wait until this kid gets into preschool, or we should wait until this kid does this or does this. And there will never be a right time to make that step. And this is why a lot of us are having to work backwards, because we're not starting from a fundamentally sound place. A lot of us are in relationships for a long time and then we move in. And once you move in, the natural next step is going to be having sex and having a baby. And so if you don't put something or a boundary in place before you get to all of that other stuff, why should we have to make that step if we're already living it? And you got to understand something about men. We're simple, all right? We're not complex, we're not complicated. If things are working right now, why change it, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. And this is why you find it so hard to even talk about marriage, because we don't want to hear that right now. You should already know that I'm working this job, trying to make extra money for you, me, and this baby. I don't want to hear about marriage right now because you know that we talked about this before. Now is not the right time. We're going to wait until we get settled. And so what a lot of us are actually in is we're in marriages without the ring. We're in marriages without God's blessing. And I hate to buck a lot of y'all toes, but this is why a lot of you don't find consistency in your relationships, because some of these fundamentally sound things have been skipped. You can't expect to have a relationship that looks like this marriage over here if you're not willing to do what that relationship did to get there. You have to talk about these things. You have to be serious. And sometimes you have to put your foot down and say, no, if you love me, you need to do X, Y, and Z before we can get here. What a lot of us do is out of fear, right? Because we're afraid that we're going to lose this person we're with. We give them more than they deserve right now. And so when we give them more than they deserve, we think, right, the psychology behind it is, no, that's going to cause them to want to marry me now. But it never works. It never ever works. And that's because the standard has now been decreased. Everybody's having sex in relationships. Everybody's moving in without being married. And I'm not going to hit you if you're doing it, I'm just saying these things so you can understand a little bit better as to why these things may not be happening for you. So here's where one of the obvious issues comes in. How do I bring this up to him, right, Harrison? Because you've been giving this man Coca-Cola for the better half of 3, 5, 10 years. And now you're taking that away from him and you're saying, here, you got to drink Ritz Cola now. What man wants to do that? You can't expose someone to a better life and then expect them to be okay with going back to the way it used to be some time ago. But this is the kind of bed that you set for yourself. Now, you're only going to ask this question if you're serious about doing it right. Anything worth having in this life is also sometimes worth gambling. Now, a lot of people may not agree with me on that because you may be comfortable with where you're set up right now. For those of you that believe in being married, this is something you seriously have to consider. And it's not just something you talk about on a whim. You literally have to get serious and think about the timing of this. You have to make room for this, and you have to communicate about these things. The fact that you have to talk about this after the fact indicates that there's already a communication problem. Now, that communication problem may not be something you were aware of, but now that you're here in this situation, it's becoming evident that y'all weren't talking about the right things. And this is what happens when you enter relationships and you don't necessarily talk about boundaries, right? Or you don't talk about things before you move. Relationships today is basically just a gradual change from one thing to the next. I get the number. We start flirting and kissing. We have sex, and then this becomes our routine. We never really discuss, what is it I want for the future until all of that stuff is already done. We never talk about what are your marriage goals, what are your long-term goals, do you even want to be married? We don't reach that point until after we've done these things. And so you find, folks, that you can't be so quick, right, to just operate off of love alone. You got to use sense in these things. You got to ask yourself, number one, what is it that I want in my relationship? If marriage is important to you, make that a priority at a decent amount of time after being together with this person. I'm not saying slap the marriage talks in their face in the beginning of this relationship, but I'm saying if you see that this relationship is heading in a healthy direction, bring it up. Talk about it. Communication has never killed anybody. And if the person you're involved with is afraid to even discuss the idea of marriage, that tells me that this person may have a commitment issue. Watch out for that. Another reason why he may not want to marry you is because he may have had a negative perception of what marriage is. A lot of people in this country, right, are not far removed from bad experiences when it comes to marriage. Whether it's the parents, whether it's your friends who got married and they broke up, or whether it's something in the media. You know, everybody's been talking about Lala and Carmelo lately. Is there really any point in being married if all of these marriages are failing? Does marriage still work? The answer to that question is yes. Marriage still works. It's just people, we're not working properly. And because we don't work properly, we cast the blame on the institution. And that's wrong. Marriage works. We just have to become ready for what marriage is. And a lot of us aren't prepped. You know, we aren't taught really what it means to be a wife. We aren't taught really what it means to be a husband. And so when we get into these relationships, we feel like we have to put everything out on the table because we don't know what the difference is. If you ask a young person today, what's the difference between being a girlfriend, being a wife, or being a boyfriend and being a husband, people will probably only say the ring. Because really, what difference is there today? And so folks, you know, although you may have seen a lot of marriages break up, you may have seen a lot of people enter into marriages that seem so unfulfilling and unhappy, recognize that that has nothing to do with the institution of marriage. Marriage is a gift to us from God. What God makes is perfect. Therefore, it must mean that we, the people, aren't doing it right. And so once we can focus on ourselves, once we can communicate about what our issues are, admit them and work on them, we can get to that point where we can start seeing more young people getting married. Where we can start seeing more marriages that are hitting 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I hope to be it. But I'm learning even in this process right now, it's not just all butterflies and glitter. There's times when we have to sit down and work, because working is the only thing that's going to guarantee success in marriage. When me and my wife were younger, when we were still boyfriend and girlfriend, we talked about these things. Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, as a man, it was very nerve-wracking because I always thought that I would not be ready. You know, as men, we got to have a certain amount of money in the bank. We got to have our ducks lined up. And that sometimes stops us from making that move. But I'm telling you today, guys, there's never going to be a right time when you feel as though you're ready for marriage. Sometimes you have to take that leap of faith and then trust you and your partner, along with God, are going to be able to work these things out as you need to. Marriage still works, but you can't be afraid to take that leap. All right? This video won't cover everything, but I hope that it addressed some issues, as always. If you or someone else you know can benefit from this video, give it a like and give it a share. Or if you want some private therapy, hit me up in my DMs, man, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. Okay? Y'all take care.